What's up, everybody? This is Jeff Incontrol Robinson. This is a take 3 attempt at this video, but it's been long overdue, so I'm going to do it. We had some mic issues and various other tech difficulties, but that's not that's not particularly interesting. So this is going to be part 4 of the Evil Geniuses history video. This will be the last one. This is the pseudo Ask Me Anything. In the third video, asked people to post questions in the comments, and I will now be answering them. I'm going to be reading them raw. This is a much more off-the-cuff video, which is casual even for my casual standards, which all my videos are pretty damn casual. This is going to be the king of casual, because I'm literally just going to read it and answer it. It's not scripted. I don't have the questions pre-printed. I didn't read them. In the other 2 iterations of the video, I got through like 5 of these, and I'm going to have to re-answer those, which is like my worst nightmare, but it's fine. We'll do it. So, first and foremost, thank you everyone for the feedback to the videos. A lot of people have been getting back to me just over the several months saying that they really enjoy it. It's been a nice walk down memory lane. There's some good information in there. In the third video, we had a little bit of drama with the CSGO stuff, which I thought was interesting. I thought that was a lot more well known than I guess it was. Had some really interesting exchanges with Jack. It's all public though, so there's no story there. He just kind of called me a liar, asked if I was doing that for publicity, various interesting things, which I think is a little bit embarrassing because a lot of people that he works with know the whole story, so to publicly do that was a bit weird, but whatever. Esports is filled with that kind of stuff, so it's hardly something to even bat an eye at, really. But let's just go ahead and dive into this. These questions were meant to be kind of a cleanup, like things that I didn't cover, things that people wanted to know more about. There is going to be some stuff in here that I have answered a million times before, but I will answer again, because this video will be kind of the definitive, like, alright, you can go check it out there, because I give a long, in-depth answer. So let's just get right into it. First one is from Isaac Grundy. Says, question, can you just make a ton of videos with stories from your time in esports? And, first and foremost, I appreciate that. That sounds like you enjoy listening to my stuff, which is always great to hear. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing I like to do. So my YouTube has always been like inspiration based. When I feel like there's something important to talk about, I go here and make a video more as a reference point. I haven't collected a single dollar from YouTube. Not that I'm like above that. Maybe someday we'll really focus on YouTube and try to make it into something that can be a part of my revenue stream. But for right now, it's really kind of a place just to document and put out information, and it's just another format of media for me to get there. So stories about esports, yeah, I could see that being in the future for sure. 530 Dynasty 1 says, you're awesome. Glad you made these videos. I've been an avid fan of yours. So he says some really, really nice stuff, but then he has a list of questions. He says, what happened with you and Noni? Both of you seem to get unusually upset with each other on one episode of State of the Game regarding how many players were allowed to play in the new NASL. You guys never seem to be quite the same afterward on the podcast. Did things get patched up? And do you guys see each other much, considering you both live in the same area? So this is like a interesting example of something that happens quite often. I've been on a lot of shows over the course of my career, and there's just always been this thing where people are like, hey, did anyone else notice Day 9 didn't particularly laugh at that joke from Artosis? Do you think that the two of them are feuding? And if so, why is it about the GSL? And it's like, no, I mean, for the most 99% of the time, you're making a narrative. No, Noni and I were not unusually upset at each other during that podcast. One of the greatest things about State of the Game was it was individuals that felt strong and secure enough to disagree with each other, and oftentimes did it with humor, but sometimes did it serious. I don't even remember this argument or dispute, but no. I can't speak for Noni, but from my perspective, there was no grudge. We argued about many of things, and that's cool. I think friends should argue, and I always get weirded out when people are like really uncomfortable by that, because it's like a very it's an immature thing to not be comfortable arguing. You're going to as you advance in age, and like, I'm 31 years old. I feel like a wizened old crone, but like and I know I'm not, by the way. I'm just saying that I feel that way sometimes. But like, you're going to argue. It's actually really good and healthy too. It's how you handle it. It's how you conduct it. So whenever people are looking in and are like, oh my god, they must hate each other, it's like, yikes, I'm uncomfortable for you, actually. So no, long story short, no, nothing at all there. You touched on Alex being asked to leave EG, but I don't recall you saying what he went on to do after. Maybe my brain skipped it. Does that from time to time. Well, first and foremost, I would always encourage people to reach out. If you're interested in someone, like I get asked about Machine, I get asked about Idra, now I'm being asked about Alex. I'm happy to answer in this format, but most of the time, it's not appropriate for me to answer on someone else's behalf what they're up to. You should reach out to them. They have Twitters, and I'll just tell you from me, it's nice to hear, especially when someone has actually moved on. Like Machine really is not a part of esports anymore, but that was a big part of his life. So when someone tweets him and says, "Hey, Machine, I'm a big fan of you. I'm just curious, what are you up to, man? Just want you to know that people care about you." That's a great thing for him to hear. He's gonna love hearing that. But when you ask me that, he never gets the opportunity to hear that kind of message. So this is about Alex Garfield. I was talking about him, and like I said, in this format, I'm answering questions, so I'm happy to. But in the future, like, these people like hearing that, so just please consider it. I don't know what Alex is up to. He's on his, he made a lot of money with the acquisition of Good Game Agency from Twitch/Amazon. So he's doing very well for himself, but what he's going to do with his life, because he's a young entrepreneurial businessman, I don't know. He's got a background in music. He obviously has a huge passion for gaming, so we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. But you can, like I said, I encourage you to ask him. Is there any possibility of you, Tyler, Greg, Sean, JP, DJ Wheat doing a podcast in the future? You could talk about literally anything, and you'd get a ton of listeners. Possibility, yes. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Tyler is like kind of playing Starcraft, but kind of not. Although he's down for a good conversation, I'm guessing. Greg, or Idra, for those that don't know that, his name's Greg, is moved on. He's in school. He's done to the limelight, and he's, as far as I can tell, happier for it. Sean, JP, DJ Wheat, they're all in various different stages of their active lives. So I mean, the amateur scientist in me can't tell you no, there's no possibility, because there's a possibility the sun could actually be a zit on the invisible face of a god. But it's probably not going to happen. No, I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't hold your breath. How deep, truly, was the feud between Huck and Idra? They didn't like each other before they were on the same team. It wasn't like a see each other, hold us back because we'll fight type of thing. It was just a difference of opinions. It was a difference of style, I guess. But it wasn't super severe. It's just Greg was, fairly flamboyant with his angst. And Huck is just a brash guy, so he didn't mind instigating, and we're not. Instigating is a weird word for that, because Greg definitely was not innocent in this. He didn't mind toking the flame a little bit, let's put it that way. But when they were on the same team, yeah, there was a few arguments or whatever, and maybe they weren't the best of friends. But there wasn't I wouldn't call it a feud. It was not a feud. They didn't like walk into the same room and then it was like, are they gonna fight? No, it wasn't like that. Was it ever awkward for you and Anna as a couple living in a house with a bunch of other people? Yeah, for Anna in particular, I would say yes. She was one girl with like 9 guys living in that EG house in I almost said Australia. That would be cool. Arizona. But awkward for all the classic reasons. There's no story here. It was, sometimes it'd be a bit messy. Boys would be a bit dirty. Constant jokes and talk about girls and that kind of stuff. And when I said, awkward's not really that doesn't really describe it. It's not like Anna shriveled up in the corner and was like really worried about her place in the house. It's just that in the privacy between the two of us, she would express, wants and desires and discomfort perhaps with certain things. And it was all very normal, I would say, in that situation. But no, there's no story there. Whatever happened to the EG house in Arizona? We moved out of it. The company is based out of, actually, I don't know now, to be honest, but it was based out of San Francisco, in the financial district, and Alex and the powers that be decided that they wanted to move a lot of the talents and a lot of the operations to San Francisco. It was also in alignment with StarCraft kind of beginning to decline, so paying to have a house and paying to have all these people there was very expensive. And those expenses began to make less sense when there was less content and less purpose of that house and more purpose in San Francisco, so they moved the company there. Is there any remote possibility that I could get a cool signed piece of memorabilia from you? A pic of the EG players, a shirt, a dirty napkin you used and signed. And then he kind of goes on to say he has a nerd shelf, and this would be really nice. And so the full answer to this is no. And the reason for that, and this goes beyond me. This kind of goes to all personalities and pro gamers and that kind of thing. It's not because they don't appreciate you. It's not because they don't like you. It's not even because what you're asking is ridiculous. It's none of those things. It's that whenever people put the ball in your court with this kind of thing, where they're like, "Hey, I'm going to send you something. I want you to sign it and then send it back to me." The risk reward here is way out of whack. So if I do receive something, sign it and send it back to you, you'll be like, "That's really cool. I really appreciate that. Thank you." But in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. But if I get this thing, it takes a few days, or I put the address wrong and it goes to the wrong place, or let's say it's not even my fault. I put it in the mail and it ships, but the carrier fucks it up. The amount of venom and anger and vitriol that comes from fans about that kind of situation to the personality is so incredibly insane that it's something that no one will ever do. Like, I'm sure they'll be like, "What? That's not true. I heard such and such YouTuber has done it since 1999." It's like, well, cool. So it's working for somebody, but for me and for others that I know, I've been like given stuff to do giveaways. I've been given codes, and then like it got really weird because I'm not going to name names, but the people that gave me these things to give away didn't take the names down very well, so people were getting stuff late. Some people got stuff not at all. I got the weirdest messages from people. I got people that were like, "I hate you forever. If I ever see you, I will fight you. I can't believe you didn't mail that hat to me. It's ridiculous that I have to beg you for these things." I had one guy apologize on my behalf. He was like, "Hey, Jeff, I don't know what happened. I'm really sorry that your life has slunk to such a low that you put on a fake giveaway to just get a few followers or get people excited about something. Like, look, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with. Just know that you don't need to be a scumbag. Like, we really care about you." And I'm reading this and my head's spinning like in a million, different angles and directions, and I die. I'm just like dying 100 times over inside. And it's not because of that this is why you'll never get these kind of things, but it's because of those kind of things. It's also like if someone does do that, all of a sudden every week or every day, depending on how famous they are or whatever, they're getting things sent to them constantly to then be shipped back, and then like a significant chunk of my time and day is sending things to people, which is actually like, and Anna could attest to this. It's one of my most hated things. So those are all personal examples, but I can tell you that's why things like that is why most people don't do it. And then like the mega super big stars, they're not even signing those things. They have like companies and people that do it for them, and then they send them out, and that's like goodwill. But they're also so big that when someone's really upset, they can like endure that whirlwind of anger. But yeah, so that's to answer your questions. In Control, I have a question for you. You want to be a strategy hub type of personality, which makes me ask if you will be exploring grand strategy games at all. What I mean by this are games like Europa, Universalis 4, or Stellaris. Personally interested in those types of games as much as I like RTS. So yeah, I've been asked about this. I was playing Civilization 5 and 6, and people were like, "Wow, if you enjoy this, you want to take it to the next degree, here's some games." I had no idea they existed. So again, when you say is there a possibility? Sure. But those games are traditionally not very good games to stream. They're hard to get into. They're, there's a huge learning curve. It's slow pace. So there's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't be good to stream. And as I am a full-time streamer, that's a huge deterrent. But I won't tell you that it's not possible, because they are strategy games. They're grand strategy games, in fact. And maybe the day will happen where I could wander in there and do that. Question: how much of Mr. Sakarian was inspired by the things you were going through at the time? I feel like I can see a lot of parallels there, but I'd like to hear your opinion. And then he goes on to say some really nice things, which I appreciate very much. So yeah, very astute question. Mr. Sakarian is one of my characters in roleplay. He was from the game Stars Without Number is the system. The game was Swan Song. We just concluded with the live event. You can check out all the previous VODs and that live show with Matthew Mercer. on ItMeJP's YouTube channel. But for most of you, I'm guessing you know about my roleplay stuff because it's kind of a big part of what I do. And I will say, yeah, he was a huge... So, like, every Victorian Black, Vincent Longbourn, and various other characters before that were very much so like me playing a game, min-maxing, trying to survive, beginning to learn how to role play, but for the most part it was like, oh, I want the most magical, powerful thing, and I want to kill the most biggest and baddest boss. Whereas Mr. Sakarian was a character that I was playing. He was someone that was inspired by Marconi from the Dresden Files, Jim Butcher's novel series. A little bit of that. He was not a leader, and that was on purpose because previously I had been like the leaders of groups, and that was fun. And I'm kind of a natural leader, so that's what I want to do usually. But Mr. Sakarian was me wanting to see what it's like to be something different. And then I also threw him into harm's way more often than I would with any other character, again to experience what it would be like to see that happen. And all of like the legend of Sakarian kind of came out of me experimenting with those things and experiencing them by the seat of my pants and just being really excited about all that. It was really fun. So yeah, going through things, yeah, but more in like the roleplay world as opposed to like anything really reflected in my life itself. But I learned a lot about him. I learned a lot about listening and being a better team member and a less dominant leader. And it was just really, he was a huge part of my life, and still it probably will always be. Next question says, how did you get in contact with Too Good and how he helped your career in casting? He did not help my career in casting, not really. He wasn't like an agent or anything like that. He did help in the sense that, you know, he gave me several opportunities and was a great friend. Offered feedback, that kind of stuff. But I think what you're inferring is like, did he train me or get me gigs and stuff like that? Other than Asus ROG, which I did alongside the Good Studio in Finland, no. He did not help my career in particular, other than just by being an inspiring, awesome figure in my life. How did you get in contact with him? I can't actually even remember. I think we met each other naturally, like... you know, I did a DreamHack or two, and he was there working as well, and he was in Starcraft, and a funny, awesome, intelligent guy, and we just kind of bumped shoulders, I think. But he's an awesome guy. Here's a question: are you still going to cast and do Starcraft 2 events? Yes, yes, I am. I'm doing all the ones that I can. I'll miss, same as always. Like if I didn't do IEM Katowice because I had so many things in the way, but. Yeah, I mean, StarCraft's a huge part of my life. In the upcoming AMA video, whoa, Inception, I was wondering if you could give your take on the decline of StarCraft 2. And then he goes, some common answers I've heard include the community being toxic/inclusive, which I think you should check what that means, because I don't think it means what you think it does. The game being inherently flawed, and Blizzard mismanaging the esports side of the game. But I'm curious about your perspective. So this is that question that gets asked all the time. Dead guy? Was StarCraft dead yet? Dead? Was it dead? Oh, actually, it's Sasquatch. Shit. A name I haven't heard in a while. Well, what's up, man? Nice. Thank you for posting that question. Sasquatch is a former professional player. Played on Complexity. Nice guy. Great Zerg back in the day. No, so is the community toxic? I don't think so. I don't think people step into StarCraft and experience high levels of toxicity. I think it's definitely there, like anything else gaming related. But if you like go on Reddit, so like when I think of someone stepping into a community, I think of them posting on a forum, interacting with people they play against, and watching streams. Most of the streams you watch, not toxic. Most of the posts on StarCraft 2 Reddit, not toxic at all. There's a lot of downvoted stuff, you know, that'll get said, so there is toxicity, don't get me wrong. And then when you play games, yeah, I've heard, especially if you get to, you know, Diamond and Platinum in that area, low Masters, you'll encounter people that are just kind of off the cuff mean. But less so than other games, for sure. I've heard, you know, I actually don't play Overwatch myself, but I've heard it's really bad there. I play Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and I would say it's like on par with CSGO, but even then, That's a team game, and in my experience, it's actually been pretty nice. It hasn't been that bad. You'll get that player. You know, if you play 5 games of the 25 people you just played with, let's say 6 of them were dicks, 7 maybe on the North American server. I don't know, and that's like not scientific at all. But and then like the other things he asked about is Blizzard mismanaging or the game being flawed. I don't think the game's flawed. I think for a three race RTS game, it's still the pinnacle RTS. You will play games as Protoss, Terran, and Zerg and find that you are generally not losing because of balance. That's especially true for 99% of people. Like if you're in gold, you're not losing because of balance. You're just simply not. And higher, by the way. Like I would say up until low masters, balance has 0 impact for the most part. It's understanding the game mechanics, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a superbly well-designed game. I would never... Anyone that calls Starcraft flawed is, like, delusional. You should play some of these really shitty RTSs out there. Like, go play Grey Goo for a minute. Come back to me and say that Starcraft is flawed. And then Blizzard mismanaging the esports side of things. I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think we should be perpetually grateful that Blizzard has been as committed as it's been. WCS has had its ups and downs, is I think what this question is getting at, and I think that's unavoidably true. Especially the first iteration of WCS, I think it actually did do some real harm to like NASL, to MLG. IEM wasn't quite what it was back then, but it really hurt some leagues that were very actively in the space at that time. But then they also then gave huge support to leagues that otherwise wouldn't have been running StarCraft. So I feel like a lot of people don't know how much StarCraft we've gotten and how most of that has been propelled, paid for, and motivated by Blizzard going to these partners and saying, we will pay for their flights, we'll pay for the travel, or, we'll pay for the prize pool. Now, that's not to say they did all of it. Of course, you got to give some love to those partners, but the reason I'm answering it this way is because I feel like a lot of people are completely detached from how much Blizzard has done. And I feel like if they did know that, they wouldn't be as down on a lot of these things. So that's why it's like really important for personalities to put it out pretty actively that it's like, yo, they're doing great stuff. Question: in your opinion, what led to the end of State of the Game? You're great in that open format as you were on later StarCraft podcasts, and I hope to find you more in the future like the announced fanboys, which coincidentally, damn, has it been that long? He says 1 month ago. All right, we've had 4 episodes of Fanboys. I was like, wow, this video's a little old. It is a month old. So that's good. That's an interesting question. I think the TLDR is the show ended because JP moved on from Esports, but StarCraft as well. It's his show. He created it. He produced it, and he kept it going. So when your producer, creator, director, owner is no longer interested in the content that show revolves around, that's a pretty easy place to play that. I do think the more interesting answer here is that there was other factors as well. I think the show got really big, and it got really big at a time for a bunch of people who weren't quite yet used to handling something becoming a big thing. JP is now a gigantic streamer. Well, not now. He has been for years. But back then, he was creating content, but like experimenting with what works and what doesn't work, and say the game was a huge success. So there was definitely a learning curve there. There was definitely mistakes were made, and not just by him, by the way, of course. But that's why there's like some rotating cast. There were some questionable decisions about that. The show kind of, it ebbed and flowed in terms of what was it. Was it more comedy based? Was it more purely StarCraft? And it, I think it ran its course where it hit a certain period of time where it's like, okay, we've done a lot. We've done a lot of great with this, and like I said, people are moving on. So that was kind of what happened there. Excuse you, Bears. I don't know if you guys got that, but that'd be amazing. I saw the end of Homestory Cup in 2016, and during the closing ceremony after the interviews, you just looked at the casting couch and had this sad look in your eyes, like you were about to turn off the lights and close the door on that part of your life. It hit me and your fans in the Twitch chat really hard. My true question is this: will you keep your pulse on the meta and try and cast sometimes? And how was it casting with other people? Your favorite, best chemistry cast stories? So this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. I don't know. Uh, so for the chat apparently, and for you, it was me looking at the couch and thinking about never casting again. What it probably was I just got done with a 14-hour day, and I was really tired, and I can't see for shit because I should be wearing glasses all the time, but I never do, or contacts. I'm not even wearing them right now, but I can see things close just fine. And I was staring at the couch thinking, I want to go to sleep. No, I don't think of myself as being done casting. I'll cast and do content for Starcraft for as long as they keep asking me to. I stream it almost every day. When I'm not streaming it, I'm often watching people like Rotterdam stream and interacting with the community and stuff like that. Like, I'm still very much so plugged in. It kind of goes to show how compartmentalize a lot of the StarCraft fan bases. There's people who like just watch streams, or there's people who are, they're European, so they're watching European time based shows for the most part. And they kind of and if you miss a tournament or two, for them you're basically invisible, which is kind of what's happened. Like, I don't cast every event because I have a lot of other things going on. Or they just don't ask me sometimes too. I get asked for most tournaments, but ESL, for like their Asian tournaments, or a few of those have not asked me, and that's in part because there's some fantastic talent in Australia and Asia with like Tastosis that would be almost less expensive, just because my flight would be mega expensive, but also because it's good to have a change of pace there. So the long and short here is that I'm going to keep casting. You don't have to worry about that. For as long as there's events that want me there, I will be there. Best chemistry, I really like casting with Total Biscuit. We just have this really lucky run of just great games happen when we're casting. But I don't know. It's kind of a boring, silly answer, but I like a lot of different people for different reasons. Rotterdam and I are really good friends, and I love making him laugh, so that's really fun. Todd is a really fun mix of like very straight laced, but also willing to just drop a joke out of nowhere with a straight face, which is a man after my own heart. Nathanius has become extremely crisp and great and funny, and he does all things very well. And then of course my old boys, Artosis and Nick, are just great. So I don't have I'm sorry. I don't. I like everyone. It's kind of silly. All right. So moving down. Oh yeah, I actually kind of want to talk about this because this was interesting. I think I even responded to this in the thread. If you want to. Yeah. This got really crazy. So this is good. I get the answer to this here. So this guy says, unsure if it was the way things were worded or if I'm completely off base, but it sounded like you were insinuating a struggle while making $6,000 monthly and receiving a, quote, smaller than you wanted bonus upon a company sale, in parentheses, which you had no ownership in. I'm having trouble empathizing. I appreciate the feeling of being unsure of the future, but the subtle complaints while making more than your fair share, your words, was weird. This also goes along with what I was talking about earlier, where people kind of invent narratives and begin to just like create a story based off of things they hear or see, and it makes it more interesting for them. No, I was not asking for sympathy. Not only did I literally not ask for sympathy, but I like time in and time again, as I was saying that, tried to communicate that EG had taken great care of me. There was no ill will, and that this was a uncomfortable and frustrating situation. There's this like purveying thought on the internet in particular, which is really annoying because you never hear this in person. Because people, I think if they were to vocalize the words, they would realize how very weird they sound saying it. But this idea of like, if you have a good job, you have no room to ever want more, or to feel bad, or to be upset that something didn't go the way you wanted it to. So I was a pro gamer. I was paid $6,000 a month, as was talked about in the previous videos. If you didn't hear that part, you can check it out. I talk all about the numbers. And then EG was purchased, and I was given a $5,000 bonus for being on the team 9 years. And I was not given a new contract, so I had nothing, like, there was no... So the whole situation was I was not given a new contract, which everyone else in the company was, which included benefits, included retirement, included shares. Like, it's a very incredibly cushy, very nice, set you up for life kind of thing. I didn't get that because they didn't know where I stood in the company. And then for the next 2 years, I was paid in a holding pattern, never under contract. The entire time, the explanation was, we'll eventually find you a place in Twitch, or we'll get you this contract with EG, but we just need to figure out how to do that. Never happened. So I was communicating that's really weird and really uncomfortable and very bad. He's taking that as me saying, oh, boo-hoo, give me sympathy. I was being paid money to play video games. Wah, wah, I wanted more. Which is like this incredibly annoying concept that keeps happening. There'll be people that are like, yo, I grew up in Hellfire, Arkansas, where we pulled poultry out of their... We had to rectally remove their organs with our hands, so much so that my hands gave my family fumes and they died. And you're like, wow, that sounds terrible. That's horrible. And they're like, yeah, so you can't complain. And it's like, nope, I still can complain. I still can. The fucking billionaire president king of some unknown country that we haven't visited yet, he or she can complain as well. It's actually all perspective based, and it's so annoying having to just constantly fight that. Like, if you saw me saying I have it worse than everyone, this is the worst. I'm just, why do I even live? It's the worst. I'm pretty sure I'm the unluckiest person on earth. Then yeah, you come down on me like a ton of bricks. But you'll never hear me say that. I am more self-aware than that. I'm actually a fairly intelligent, pretty well-rounded kind of guy who, for the most part, when I communicate I'm upset or something like that, I'm going to throw out like 15 safety remarks about how I know that it's not the worst. I'm just venting what is otherwise internalized thoughts and feelings. I'm sharing with people that I consider my community because I want them to know what I'm going through and to perhaps learn from my mistakes or my successes or my failures. Like, it's kind of fun. It's fun to be that plugged in. But the cost of that is that I am constantly being told by people like how to live my life and how wrong I am about living my life. And this is a pretty good example of that. He thinks I'm asking for sympathy. He thinks I have no room to ask for anything because I'm making good money. I don't own the company, so whatever bonus I get is more than I should ever expect. And it's so frustrating because it's like nobody's going to put his life under that lens and begin to do that to him. And if they did, he would begin to know what that feels like, where someone's like, you are an accountant? Well, oh my gosh. I can't believe that. My Uncle Freddie couldn't get a job because he was missing both his arms from the war, and then eventually killed himself by shooting himself in the head with a shotgun. He had to use his feet to do it because he just couldn't go on. So you can't complain. And it's like, he would realize how ridiculous that sounds. So I guess this is like a long way of just explaining, like, be very careful. There are times to jump on people. There are times when people say shit that is, like, obviously ridiculous. But when someone in a video like this, a vlog, where I'm sharing personal stories, and I don't ever say that I have it worse than anyone, I just am complaining about my particular situation, it's almost always a bad idea to be like, you can't complain. Everything is great. Because it's like this would be an amazing life lesson if someone's not picking up on this. Everyone has shit. Everyone has shit. So we'll move on from that because this could be like a 5-hour video if I rant too much about that. But that was a little thing that happened there. You can read all the comments in there. There's actually people that jumped in there and defended him, and then there's people that obviously got it and were kind of talking about my side as well. It makes for bad drama, but it's an interesting concept because it is something that kind of pops up a lot. 2 inquiries. As someone who was on the edge of being able to compete in powerlifting while also laddering in Starcraft 2 for 8 hours a day, circa 2012, I was, and still am, no doubt, a big fan of yours. given how underrepresented us big, strong boys are in gaming circles, generally speaking. So are you still keeping up with a routine? Do you have any nagging injuries or obstacles that have forced you to back off from training as much? And what are your fitness plans going forward? So my fitness plans going forward are just to eat better than I was back then. I worked out so that I could eat whatever I wanted, but that doesn't really work. I was eating like 4 pounds of spaghetti a day. Fucking love spaghetti. And that much starch and that much sodium is actually super unhealthy. So I had a bit of a life check when 3 years ago we were getting our blood work done for life insurance that we just bought. They were like, no, you're almost diabetic. And I was like, what? It was like one of the strongest periods of my life, and I was working out every day. It was a shock. I was like, what? So we looked into it. If I wasn't eating spaghetti, I was eating rice. When we would go out to eat, I'd have soda. We never had soda at home, which was kind of like the silent killer. Like when I was home, I drank a ton of water, and that was about it. But when we go out, which would be like 2 or 3 times a week, if you think about it, because I'd see a movie almost every Friday or Saturday, and then we'd go out and have dinner once or twice, I would have 3 or 4 sodas. Not thinking that's a super big deal, but that's a super big deal. It's a lot of sugar, especially since the other things that I was eating, like rice, white rice, and like spaghetti or pasta, that all actually has a ton of sugar too. I did not know that. So I was actually just like flooding my system with sugar constantly, despite the fact that I was also in the gym 2 or 3 hours a day, being stronger than I've ever been in my life. So I gave up pop for a year, or soda, and I began to eat more wheats as opposed to, and I also varied my diet, went away from having rice and pasta every single day to having it once every other day or once every 3 days, and then having salads and sandwiches and just like looking into what I was eating. I immediately dropped 30 or 40 pounds, and I have had no issues with blood since then. So that was good that I was able to catch it and turn it around. But so that's the health side. As far as the working out, I'm not training powerlifting anymore. I loved it, but I really feel like you need partners to do it, especially if you're lifting the kind of weight that I was. You cannot be doing that by yourself, and you really shouldn't be asking random people in the gym to come spot you while you bench almost 500 pounds raw. And don't even get me started on bench shirts. I did have one injury because I was back in college. This is many years ago now. I was 22 or something like that. I was benching 700 and... No, it was either 700 or it was up on my way to 700. So it was like 655 with the bench shirt. And when you do that kind of weight, you have spotters on both sides and one over the middle. The guy over the middle is the one that's supposed to help you lift the weight up, or is supposed to save you if it starts to fail. The guys on the side are just in case a complete collapse happens. But my guy on my left, when we were like, okay, 1, 2, 3, he went up, and the other guy didn't because you're not supposed to. And the guy in the middle, was like an equalizer. But this guy lifts up, so it goes to the right like this, and I immediately stabilized with my right leg, just reflexively. And it just, I don't know what happened. I never went to a doctor, but something happened to my sciatic nerve along my right leg up into my back. And it, for like the next 6 months, I couldn't sit without extreme pain. And that sucked. That sucked a lot. But that's actually my only injury for the most part. Lifting weights. My weightlifting partner, who's now in prison for assaulting an officer, or was. I don't know if he still is, but that was what brought that's what brought our partnership down. A story for another day. He had every injury there was possible. He ripped his pec, he ripped his bicep, he had his, what tendon is it behind your knee? Anyways, one of those. He had that rip and then roll up behind his knee. Like, just the worst shit, man. But he was actually a madman, and I would later find out was doing steroids. So that kind of stuff can happen. Question, would you ever consider doing strategy content for Warhammer 40k? If not specifically strategy content, is there any other country you might do? I think you meant to say content, but it came out country. You might do with the tabletop game. Yes, I oftentimes appear on Frontline Gaming, and whenever I hang out with those guys, they're some of my best friends in the whole world. We usually do a stream or two and some content. I was recently at the LVO. I didn't actually make it onto their stream, but they had a stream going the entire time, which was on the front page because Twitch is awesome. And for me personally, on my own channel and stuff, I'm kind of considering it. We are doing some videos, so there's a Magnus the Red painting video on there. As soon as Anna's back from this most recent trip, there'll be a one about Belisarius' Call and the triumvirate of Imperial characters that got painted up by Frontline Gaming, so that'll be there. And then I've considered doing... There's been some people asking about doing some like list critiques or list builds, that kind of stuff. So it definitely could happen. The other 40k content, though, is that I do have really exciting and fun stuff coming soon with Relic and Dawn of War 3. They're just awesome to work with, and they've been reaching out and willing to supply me with some of that dank Dawn of War 3 goodness. So there'll be a lot of that on my Twitch channel. Did you ever explain the State of the Game horse thing to Anna? No need to explain it. She saw the video. She saw a lot of it. Would you ever consider running your own D&D show? Yes. I actually asked JP about doing a Dark Heresy one-shot or show or whatever, and he seemed open to it. I really enjoy you as a personality on various shows. Would you consider other shows besides the ones with DJ Wheat as a regular format on your YouTube channel? For example, I especially like Teal Attack and miss that kind of content. Shows on my YouTube? I don't know. I mean, would I consider it? Yes. Am I going to work towards it actively for right now? Probably not, but I'm trying to do more YouTube content. So I definitely, I want to be able to say to you that there'll be more, and I think there will be. Why did Idra and DeMuslim have such a contentious relationship? Differences of people. Greg's he's an intense guy, and especially when he was a pro, well, in particular when he was a pro gamer, you had to be able to roll the punches with him, and DeMuslim kind of, he did. DeMuslim wouldn't say anything or, push his buttons necessarily, but in game, DeMuslim took back, if Greg would say a fuck you or no GG and that kind of stuff, DeMuslim's recourse was to keep trolling Greg with like cheesy strategies and stuff like that. But it also worked. That's the kind of weird nature of Starcraft. You can be on the same team as someone, but then fight against that person for money. So that's kind of, if you know that there's a way to do that and give yourself an advantage, you're gonna probably do that. All right. As you combine all of my three great nerdy loves, Warhammer, RTS, and RPGs, could you say something about roleplay with JP, especially in regards to that year on hold and how much it affected you and your decisions for the future? Year on hold. I think he's referring to the time where we had a schism because I was inappropriately mean to Jen, and JP was inappropriately over the top defensive about it, and then we had a weird interaction. But we were like, that was not a year. I think we missed 1 week of a show, and then we were right back at it immediately after that, and it was all hugs around, apologies, and we had a great show after that. So I'm trying to think if there's ever... well, I think that's what you're referring to. But yeah, no, I didn't have any other... Friends fight, and friends have, that's good. That's actually healthy. I've been a better person for it since then, I'll tell you that. My characters... that was my defense, was it was my character that was mean. But, that's not fair. It's also coming out of my mouth, and if my character keeps, in particular, targeting the same person, it makes it less fun for that person. So I learned something from that, for sure. How is the change from competitive StarCraft 2 to 40k for you? Do you have any plans to make something similar with Warhammer as you did with StarCraft 2, Frontline Gaming being your EG, so to speak? Yeah, I'm the captain of the Frontline Gaming team, which is Team Zero Comp. I travel quite a bit for Warhammer. I call it my golf, though. So the difference between it being StarCraft 2 is StarCraft 2 is my job, whereas Warhammer is not going to be my job. It's going to be a part of my job and has been in terms of content, but that's because I'm fortunate enough to just do gaming, so it falls into that purview. But no, it's a passion. It's something I love. It's very RTS-y. It's very strategic, so it kind of hits on all the things I really enjoy. But no, I'm not gonna make it much further than that, if I think that's what you're getting at. Could we possibly get an interview with Anna and get her viewpoint on the whole thing? That's a standalone question, so I don't know what you mean by the whole thing necessarily. But an interview with her? Yeah, I mean, that's something interesting. Maybe that'd be kind of cool on the channel. At the very least, get a hot grill on there. Do you know where Tasteless's passion is? Yes. It is all around us. It binds us. It runs through us. It runs above us. It runs below us. Tasteless's passion is eternal. It is invincible. And it is all-knowing and seeing. So be very careful how you talk about it, because that passion, while it does normally just steal ladder points, could come for your soul. And then this guy I didn't realize this guy kept it. Actually, it's the same guy. So this is the guy that I was ranting about, where he created a narrative and then said that I was asking for sympathy. He says, I'm sure you're aware, but if they really left you out to dry, e.g., they would have let you go after you moved out of playing. So again, what he's doing is, I called it left to dry because for 2 years I was told I'd be given a contract, and I was told to wait, and then it just never happened. I thought that was like a pretty easy depiction for people of something bad, but apparently for this guy, he's like, no, you could have been fired. And it's like, yeah, they could have murdered me. They could have blown up the sun and killed everyone. I mean, there's a lot of things they could have done that would have been way worse, but this was also bad. Yeah, so I don't think we need to spend any more time on that kind of stuff. But I just, anytime you can talk about an idiot, it's a little bit cathartic. It feels good. Let's see. Question. Could you elaborate more on Stefano's time with EG? I'm fascinated by what you said about Stefano antics in the team house. Yeah, I mean, he's just a really interesting guy. He'll say ridiculous things, but there's like, it's 50-50 that he knows he's being tongue-in-cheek silly, but he also kind of wants the answer. He's surprisingly intelligent and surprisingly funny. I say that because I think most of the time you look upon Stefano or hear him talk and stuff like that, you just kind of think of a goofy, aloof guy. He's not. He's actually very intelligent, very capable. But eccentric, I think, is a good word for him. In the house, he was really funny. He was watching a lot of like French dramas, not practicing very much, but that was kind of his thing. He was known for that. He didn't play that much, but was still better than everybody else. Got along really well with Anna in particular, and just a good guy. Jeff, what do you think about playing Hearthstone? To each their own. I've never played a single game, but I could see I've watched people, and it seems cool. Since you mentioned doing overlay stream rebranding, have you gotten your free consult from JP's graphics guy yet? Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to get one. That's funny. No, I have not. But JP supplied me with this awesome audio stuff, and he's a good friend that just helps out all the time. But the graphics have been largely in part done by Cobra, by the way. I should plug that right now. He's my right-hand guy. He's not a graphics person, but he works damn hard at it and is a perfectionist. So a lot of this stuff I think looks really sharp and good, and I'm very happy with it. And he works really hard on it. So I would not have nearly as good looking stuff if not for awesome people in my community like Cobra. I think Cobra might be the most awesome. Well, I say might because that's like the polite thing to do, but he actually is. He makes everything go. Question for you. First, thanks for these awesome history videos. You're welcome. Why do you think professional esports has shifted so hard from solo games to team games? Why do you think most of the big modern esports are team games? That's an interesting question. I think team games are really exciting and fun to watch, but I don't think it's necessarily that they're team games. I do think that's a part of it, but I think it's just that they're damn good games, and they have huge player bases. Dota, LoL, CSGO. CSGO is an improvement on the best FPS ever, in my opinion, being Counter-Strike 1.6. And it's just like people are going to always enjoy that. The barrier to entry for enjoying that content is surprisingly low, right? Like, you understand people shooting guns, you understand explosions, can't see through smoke, fire's bad. Like, it's very straightforward. So people that have no idea can tune in and have something to grab onto. That concept is a little bit more complicated because if you look at like Dota and LoL, I don't think that's as much as true anywhere near the same. It's actually quite complicated. Yes, they're fighting. Yes, there's stuff happening, but I think they benefit from their giant player bases, and their giant player bases are because the game is really good, but also because that genre is really fun. MOBAs are really fun games to play. That's why there's so many of them, and they've stuck around for a while. Gonna pull some water here. But it's certainly true what you said too, or asking about. It is team game, and that is really fun for people to watch. Let's see. Why did you dodge talking about you punching Stefano into retirement? Who else did you remove from the scene that you weren't mentioning? So that's actually a joke, which is actually kind of funny. So during one of the broadcasts for DreamHack, Apollo made a joke about how so it's so weird. Apollo is a funny guy, but he's like a goofy funny guy. He's not a very good banter back and forth funny guy. He's gotten better at it, but unfortunately, as he got better at it, he then became a producer as opposed to someone that is on camera more. He just said this really weird thing of like, hey, I heard, he's like, I heard you punched Stefano, and that's why he really retired. And I remember looking at him being like, what? Like, it wasn't funny. It was awkward. I was trying to be a good co-commentator though, and like playing it off as laughy and funny, but in my head I'm like, what? And then there was people that took it serious, so that's why it took its own life. They're like, wow, Jeff punched someone. There weren't that many of people that thought that, but there was enough that it was weird. And then there was just like it just had its own weird, awkward little life for a little while, but it really became funny when Artosis brought it back on another DreamHack broadcast and made a joke about it. And then there was I jokingly punched him, and someone made that into a funny YouTube video, and then that's when it became an actual joke, and then I was able to enjoy it. But before that, I was just like, Apollo, what the hell? So that's what he's getting at. Where do you see yourself in the long run, like 50 to 60 years old? Obviously, this can't be very specific, but just in general terms. Also, thanks for being a lovely person on the internet. Thank you for being a lovely person on the internet. At 50, 60, still doing gaming. Probably at that point in time, I would like to be more of on the business side of things. So maybe doing a podcast or two, owning a team. Invested in various leagues, that kind of stuff. But I just love gaming. It's in my blood. Man, I've done... Okay. I'm still someone who plays Starcraft 2 competitively since its inception, wants to join the scene. What advice would you give to someone still wanting to compete in 2017? Ugh, that's tough. So, like, my fully honest answer would be don't. If it's 2017 and you're not a competitor and you want to be a competitor, you're coming in at the worst time. There's teams flat out not paying people or paying people the least that there ever have been in StarCraft. There's fewer events to go to. There's less coverage. Sponsorships are harder to come by. So all of this is going towards, like, what are you doing? Like, if you're like, no, I'm a bajillionaire, I don't have to worry about money. That's like, yeah, sure, fucking go for it. But if you have real life concerns like money and time, then no, now's the worst time to do it, so don't. But the advice would be if all that aside, it's still something you want to do, the mega generic advice is just like, well, get to the top of a ladder, play in the online cups, get your name out there. That's how you do it. Alrighty. Have you thought about joining another team in Stars Raft? It actually says that. On the operations side, thought about it, yeah, but it would have to be a team like Team Liquid or something like that, something massive and very well. I wouldn't join like a mega amateur team and try to make that work. Okay, if you could go back in time and disguise yourself as an EG executive, what would you change about the EG lair? It seemed like you had all the ingredients. Yeah, that's a great question. I would have put a pretty active manager in there that makes sure that is in person handling the drama, is in person making sure everyone's practicing constructively, and is in person making sure that those pro gamers live healthy lives. So we all went to the gym and stuff, and that was good. We were pretty good about going and seeing movies on weekends, and we were all really good friends, so it was a very positive atmosphere that way. But like when an MLG was coming up or something like that, it got really intense. It got really, people were like overplaying. They'd practice 12 or 14 hours, with like 4 of that not being good, because they'd be tilted or they'd be frustrated or tired, and it's just bad practice. So stuff like that could have been managed by an in-person manager. Who is Libo, or the person you are referring to as a 9-year-old gamer? Libo is Libo, Xenocider, who's now like a very successful poker player, I guess. That happened really fast. He's just a smart, super awesome guy, and he's just gonna do great things. That's yeah. So Xenocider, or Libo SC2, I think, on Twitter. I think. Bunch of questions. Uh-oh. Can you talk more about the what-if scenarios? What I mean by that are the times you almost signed people to the EG Starcraft 2 scene, the Root roster, Naniwa, MMA, etc. How involved was I with that? Not involved at all, other than they like asked my opinion on it and what they thought about us doing it. Naniwa had basically a whole team made for him so that he could be EG without being EG. MMA was a hot topic. Team Liquid Hero actually came to us at one point and said he wanted to join because he was very unhappy with how he was being treated at Team Liquid and his pay. That was interesting. And that was like several years ago, by the way. So don't think that reflects Team Liquid now or anything like that. Or who knows? Maybe he was being treated great and paid great, but he was just having a moment. So don't think that's criticism against Team Liquid. That's just something that was kind of interesting. We almost signed Parting. That was like a 12th hour thing where like we were basically about to put pen on paper, and then Alex called it off. Just didn't want to commit to it for some reason, which ended up being a really bad choice because then Parting would go on to win like the next 4 tournaments. That was really right before he just destroyed a year. What else? Yeah, we were talking about merging with the Root roster for a little while. That was something that was being discussed. I don't think that one got very far. That's about it. Can you talk more about EG's move with TL to enter Pro League? I actually don't know much about it. I'm sorry. They did that all in Korea. Management did it in the dark because they like their surprises, and I didn't go there or anything like that. It was fun to watch. You mentioned that you did everything you could to achieve your dreams in pro gaming, but it simply wasn't enough. If you could go back and change the way you train or anything, what would you change? What do you think would have been your ideal way of training back then? Less mass play and more focused play. I just cranked out a bunch of games on ladder and played some customs. I think that should be reversed. You should play a lot of customs and some ladder. And then I think I would have worked, I future Jeff would go back and tell past Jeff to work on his mental game more. That's never been an issue for me, really, but in StarCraft it was. One of my favorite moments in the history of esports is seeing Thorazane winning DreamHack in Sweden. You were there hosting an event. Could you tell us about that from your perspective? Yeah, it was just an amazing moment. Sweden has always had some of the best fans, and for them to see their homeboy win against impossible odds, beating Polt like that, with great production, really, I mean, just DreamHack hit everything out of the park with that. And it was cool. It was one of my first hosting events, and I was just like kind of in the zone the whole time. I was very comfortable in my career. I was very happy. But everything was on point. Like DreamHack was treating me awesome. The Swedish fans were amazing. Thorazane was doing well. Someone that's very easy to cheer for. So I was just fortunate to be kind of at the center of that. Where were there StarCraft 2 players which EG negotiated with but did never sign? Yeah, like I was saying, Parting and Minchol, actually, a couple times. How did PPD get the CEO position, and did he grow within the company? I don't know. That all happened outside of anything I heard or knew or any discussion with me. I think the off-the-cuff answer I would give you is that he helped manage and put together a 2-time invitational winning team, and they're millionaires, and usually makes for a pretty good CEO. First, I want to say it's been let's see. I don't think there's a question here. It starts with a question, but I don't think there's a question. Okay. Thanks for the kind words, though. How does StarCraft 2 compare against the original and Brood War from esports and balance standpoint? Similarly, esports-wise, obviously, the scope and grandeur of StarCraft 2 hit way higher peaks and places than Brood War ever did by a bajillion. But yeah, they're both hyper competitive, fairly similar RTSs. Brood War is more brutal. You had to do a lot more. The skill ceiling was way higher. And with the level of play the Koreans hit in Brood War was godlike, like actually godlike. Whereas in StarCraft 2, it's like very good, but obtainable. It never feels like you couldn't ever do that. But in Brood War, they did things where you're like, I can never do that. I have hands, I have a keyboard and mouse, I cannot do what they're doing. Which is cool. It's an amazing feeling. Do you think you started to not enjoy StarCraft 2 because you were no longer a competitive player? Yeah, I actually said that. That's literally what I said. And that's why I then started to play other games on stream and mixed that with StarCraft 2 and found that I really enjoyed that. Also, do you think that design of StarCraft 2 and the expansions held the game back and had something to do with the decline in popularity? No. I'm like... It's hard for me to take these questions serious because it's like... There's so many people that are just like, wow, StarCraft 2 shit game. How many hours do you play? 5,000. It's like, I mean, it's not a shit game. It's just not. Stop. Like, when people are like, no, objectively, Heart of the Swarm was a terrible game. No, it was not. Well, okay, but then you have to agree, Wings of Liberty was a terrible game. No, it was not. The game has evolved, and it's been constantly patched. It's been constantly massaged and balanced and worked on and commented and critiqued over 7 years now. And at no point in time was it like the most imbalanced thing. Broodlord and Fester, we still won games, by the way. I played in that era. I played competitively, professionally in that era. It was rough, but it was not impossible. There's been streaks of dominance from all three races, and all three of those streaks of dominance you could still play and compete, and people won tournaments with the other race. Like it does. I almost like sympathetically get frustrated when I hear people make these remarks of like, do you think StarCraft 2 was made a shit game by these patches and balances, and or like, do you think Blizzard fucked up esports? It's like, man, I wish people knew, or at least like looked for all the information on how incredibly self-important and like unapologetically, I don't know, ungrateful some people are. Like, we've gotten so much out of StarCraft. It's done so much for so many people, and it's brought us so many amazing moments and great tournaments and huge finals, and a lot of that was because Blizzard hit it out of the park with design. They made a gorgeous, great game. Yes, of course there's things to critique and be, to hold to question, but when someone just like sums it up with like, Blizzard fucked up esports, or like Blizzard made shitty expansions, it's like, that's so not fair. That's so incredibly not fair. And the only reason I'm giving this any more time of day is because a lot of people say stuff like that. It's really frustrating. But I mean, the people that have the least to say usually say it the loudest, so it's like, it makes sense why that seems to stick out more. Wow, this guy uses a word that I have no idea what that means. He says, first a plaudit, then a question. I don't know what a plaudit is, but here we go. That was a very balanced talk on a difficult time. Question, do you feel in hindsight that things have all worked out for the best thus far? Your narrative implies that the collegiate environment in Arizona was the most enlivening, productive way to do StarCraft programming for you. How much longer do you feel like you could have flourished as a frontline competitor in StarCraft if the EG house had continued? I think I was declining in results for a while there. I have a huge pet theory on what it takes to be a successful pro gamer. I think when people say you need to be young, they're not saying that because as you get older, your hands stop working, or your eyesight's bad or something like that, it's because you have more on your mind. You have taxes to pay, you have bills to pay, you have a wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, whatever. If you don't have those things, that's actually also on your mind as well. People are getting older. The real world's kind of crushing in on you, and that actually affects your ability to mentally handle the landscape of being a competitive pro gamer. So I don't think any more time at the Ichi house would have done much for me, other than like I would have showed up to tournaments and had the same kind of mediocre results. But I feel like perhaps I could have offered more as like a manager slash, traditional captain, as opposed to just like captain in name, basically. Um, that could have been something there. If you could go back in time and have a 10-minute conversation with yourself from 2009, what advice would you give yourself and why? Damn, that's a tough one. I would I would probably spend the entirety of the 10 minutes talking about how you're going to be in the public light, and your brash, sarcastic, in your face kind of humor, but also style of just public speaking is fine, but needs to be toned down and needs to be put through the filter of you're going to encounter people of all different shapes and sizes, and you have to be sympathetic to that. I think that would have saved me a lot of heartache. I spent a lot of the time on Say the Game or at events and stuff like that, basically being frustrated because I would say things that I really do believe or think, but I would say it to such a wide audience that there's going to be like, of that audience, let's say a small fraction of it, which ends up being 5,000 people, feel vehemently opposed to that and will come after you. They will think you're the worst piece of shit on planet Earth, and they will make sure that you feel that way. It's not that you can avoid those people, you can't, but you can encounter less of them and give them less fuel. And then what would happen, by the way, is they'd come after me, and then I'd go back after them, and then other people start coming in from that, and it's like a weird hive-minded, like, oh, Jeremy, someone's talking shit over here. Here they all come, and I just did that for several years, not several, but like 2 years, and it just was really tough. What is the main income sponsor advertising source of money for sports? He then says, and what is some market you feel hasn't been discovered yet that esports could be an excellent advertiser for? I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but I feel like you're... First of all, I don't know. I don't know what the main income / sponsor advertising source of money is for sports. And I don't know what market esports could be a great advertiser for. I think what you mean is like they could sponsor something in esports. We're starting to see more mainstream brands come in, so that's kind of cool. There's like cars sponsoring teams right now. Will you do a collaboration video with me? No, but it doesn't hurt to ask. How did the EG-TL partnership affect the players living stateside, if at all? It didn't. Not at all. As a Jeff with a G living in a Jeff with a J country, have you accepted the fact that the strangers will spell your name incorrectly 99% of the time? Yes. He's a fellow Jeff with a G. It's whenever people say, like, what's your name? I'll say Jeff with a G, Geoff. Because even if you just say with a G, they don't know how to spell it. Which is weird to me. Of course, it'd be weird to me because I see it all the time, but I don't know that there's any other way to spell it. Also, just as a PSA to people, there's no Geoffs out there. Every time I say this, there's someone who's like, no, I knew a Geoff. No, you did not. There's no Geoffs. There's only Jeffs. You can say it's spelled weird. That's totally fine. It is. But you can go out to a crowd of 1 million people and go, Geoff! Not a single fucking person's going to be like, what? Hello? I'm Geoff. My name's Geoff Nosnibor. I've been around for 48 years. How can I help you? Nope. There's a Jeff out there that maybe has become so accustomed to being called Geoff that they accept it, but that's it. Could you talk about Too Good and share some fun stories? You were a perfect combo. Well, thank you, Paul Sandstrom. All the stories we have are basically on camera, man. I really enjoyed We tried to get Semler a date on air one time, and Semler is a funny as shit dude, man, and that was a great moment in time. But I'm not gonna rob you of the comedy of that. You gotta look it up. It's on their VODs. It's really funny. Can you talk about your competitive experience at WCG 2009 or one of the early MLGs? How did you prepare for those? How did you feel playing in front of all those people? Can I buy you a drink if you're in Seattle? Well, thank you for asking. I thrived. I've always thrived off of performing or doing things in front of people. That's why I like public speaking so much, is because I feel like I'm very good at it. So when I do that in front of an audience, it snowballs essentially. It was exhilarating. It was really exhilarating. I only got on stage a few times at MLG, and of the few times, I was usually facing an incredible player that just destroyed me. So that wasn't as cool. But for instance, I did in one of I think maybe my absolute last MLG, I lost a series 1-2 to a very good Terran player who I'm unfortunately blanking on his name right now. Oh my god. But we had this really cool game where I was way behind, and then Dark Templar, like 7 of them, brought me back into the game, and we won. And I won, and the crowd blew up. It was like one of the coolest feelings ever. Because finally I was able to get a big win on stage against a really good opponent, and the audience was excited on my behalf too. But you're asking about WCG and stuff like that. We actually didn't play in front of large audiences. Pre-Starcraft 2, a large audience would be 5 people standing behind your chair watching. It wasn't even like streamed at all, I want to say. Maybe WCG 2009, but not the local events, the finals maybe. Yeah, everything we did was just there, man. It was just for ourselves, and it was for our peers. So I'd have like Artosis, Noni, and G5, Machine, Nyokin, all these guys at the event, and they'd be watching me or something like that, and that was really fun. And we'd joke and criticize and have a great time. Some of my best times of my life were traveling to these events with $40 in the bank, $10 in the wallet, and a dream of winning more. and there's a lot of that. Jeff, I'm hereby identifying this as a question. StarCraft Brood War is currently having a resurgence while not being anywhere near StarCraft 2 in terms of popularity in the West. Would you consider producing some StarCraft 1 content in the future? So he's asking specifically about StarCraft 1. The answer is no, but the rumor right now is that there's going to be a StarCraft HD, a remastered version, and that, barring something weird, I would super play and super be interested in getting involved with, and would definitely make content. So as long as that goes really well and is as cool as it sounds, absolutely. Could you round up some of the old crew and watch Machine eat multiple Chipotle burritos in one sitting again? There's a video of that on the EG YouTube if you want to check it out. Okay, just this next comment threw me for a loop. But yeah, Machine eats 2 burritos and then runs a mile and never ends up throwing up, by the way. We tried to get him to throw up. He never did. What was the process of Alex being the head of EG, selling it, then to be reporting to a young man with somewhat little experience who ultimately let Alex go from the empire he built? I wouldn't say PPD let Alex go. That's not how it went. It was definitely passed on to him. And then I pretty immediately left EG, so I don't really have any perspective on what it's like to work under PPD, but seems like a great guy, good head on his shoulders, very intelligent. I think they'll do great things. Alex was very similar in a lot of ways, so it's, nothing super amazing to report there. Just Alex was a really good guy, very, very business-minded, intelligent, talented, so, a little eccentric, but aren't we all? If you spent most of your time playing StarCraft 2, how do you get so big and strong? I saw your monster bench max, and that's not something you achieve just by going to the gym once or twice a week. Well, I didn't go once or twice a week. I went just about every day. But I'm actually a naturally pretty strong guy, and I've always played sports, and I've always worked out for sports. So when I came of age where I'm no longer playing in organized competitive sports, I just kind of kept lifting. But I have relatively short arms, and I have really good joints and really good tendons, so I have a lot of kind of just natural strength. But also, like on a bench press, my bench stroke is very short, especially when you have decent form. I would never say I had really good form, but I had decent form. So I was able to move a lot of weight a short distance, which is cool. It's fun. Have you thought about diving deeper into the strategy parts of other games such as Dota, LoL, CS:GO, and Hearthstone? And then he asks, because they've got big followings and stuff. No, so it's interesting. For the most part, one of kind of my mantras is that I want to do what I love and get paid for it. And I love Starcraft. I love strategy. I love some other games like XCOM's a big one for me. I do like CS:GO. Um, but I never want. I will never move to a game because there's money there. That's well. I would like to never do that. If it ever gets to the point where I'm doing something because I got to pay bills, not because I love it, then I think I've on some level failed. I'm not doing what I want to be doing, which I've been able to do my entire life essentially until now. So I like Dota to watch. I don't particularly like LoL, but I don't have any hate for it. I like CS:GO to watch, but if opportunities arose and they're like, "Hey, we'd like you to kind of guest commentate or come hang out," it'd be like, "Yeah, I'd take a look at it." But I'm not going to like start knocking on doors and fully transitioning to another game and putting it out there that I'm working on this other game just because of a large audience and for money. That should never happen. When a player's on a team, how does the team make money from them? They make money from them by putting sponsorships on their jersey, putting it on their overlays for their stream. That's a big way. It's basically getting exposure to sponsorships. And then they take the success of that player or the team and they go to new sponsors and say, look, here's the finals that had 950,000 people on stream. Here's this player who was invited to go to a Beyonce concert because Beyonce follows him on Twitter and recognizes him as a cool dude, and that's some amazing exposure there, and then they get new sponsors. And then this is that same question about doing other games. So I already answered that one. Damn, there's a lot of questions. I'm actually getting close to the end though, and thank you all for putting all the questions. Who is the most qualified? Okay. Do you think there will be an RTS game that will reach the heights of StarCraft's peak? Oof. I don't know. I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I think the boring answer is yeah, it'll be like StarCraft 3. We got Dawn of War 3 coming out. I've played it a bunch. I really enjoy it. I like it, but I don't see a StarCraft usurper there. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love there to be competition. I think that would be good for everyone. I think the RTS genre is one of the most important and best genres in gaming, but is also, even as a genre, on the decline. We have less and less RTSs coming out. Certainly less good ones. Grey Goo was an absolute hot mess. Well, let me be specific. The Grey Goo race in Grey Goo was super awesome and cool as a concept. The other two races were shit, and then the game itself was shit. They did do one thing pretty well, though, I thought. Grey Goo was a really cool concept. The idea of like a nanobot race, that was cool. So I don't know. It's hard to answer this question. I'm sorry. I think the safe answer is no. The secondary safe answer is StarCraft 3. But what you're really getting at is, will there be another one that does it? I don't think so. This doesn't pertain to EG, but could you talk about Whiteraw? The role your comments on State of the Game played in his career and your relationship in general? He's just a great guy, just super mega nice. One of the most true, genuine, good people, an actual ambassador to gaming, especially to his Ukrainian people, very loyal to his region of the world. He now works for Twitch as a brand ambassador there, I believe, trying to get people streaming and stuff like that. I don't know that I would feel comfortable saying I had any role in his career. I definitely was, I helped him coin basically his saying, but that was going to happen no matter what, man. Whiteraw can't be contained, baby. So I don't have too much to say there. First off, loved your candor in this clip. I have a question. I know you touched on the issue of being partnered on Twitch, but do you regret not being able to build the In Control brand more? When I look at someone like Destiny, who successfully transitioned from StarCraft 2 to the other games thanks to his brand and your popularity in the past in the StarCraft 2 scene, do you think that this was perhaps an opportunity that passed you by? I certainly hope not. I'm constantly trying to grow my own brand in different ways, though. I'm not. So you actually bring up the example of Destiny transitioning away from StarCraft 2. I would never want to do that. I would want to transition into including other things in my brand, which is very strongly StarCraft 2 based. I have my show Fanboys. I'm a pretty prominent figure in roleplay. You know, still do a lot of StarCraft stuff, but my stream is actually doing quite well. It's growing and is more than self-sustaining and well, not self-sustaining, but it pays the bills. It's awesome. So it's slow going, I think, is one of the things you're getting at. And there are people that had a strategy of like, I am not StarCraft anymore and I'm moving on. And Destiny is a good example of someone that has a very successful brand and stream while having moved very strongly away from StarCraft. And that's fine, to each their own. I personally have no interest in moving away from StarCraft because I want to be involved with it and still do more. But my brand's doing okay. It is growing. My Twitter followers are coming in. My stuff's doing okay, I think. How annoying is it to have people always bring up the past, like Call Combat X? Also, what are your current lifts? Which is strangely apropos because that is wow. Okay, I actually have to read this part. It says, my goal is to beat your total lift and get placed in GM. Currently, I'm only Masters and have a total of 525 kilogram. Plus, my girlfriend is a bit uglier than yours. Thanks for setting a standard I can work towards. I think there's a little bit of troll going on there. How annoying is it when people ask those questions? It doesn't really bother me. Mostly because my approach to the like really annoying questions, if you were to dive into them, is they don't even like register with me. Whenever I post and someone's like Combat X, or there's the other ones like Fat Matt Damon and stuff like that, it's like, it doesn't bother me. If you're exposed to something enough, it stops having an effect. Someone asking about Stefano. Why were none of the most important contributors ever offered equity in EG? I think that's a business tactic, right? If you don't give them equity, then that's more equity for the people that do have it. Which sounds really nefarious and mean, but I don't think that's at all what it is. I think the kind of greater example of what happened there is EG is made up of young men and women who are not... Did I say EG? I meant gaming. Esports. I meant esports. Esports is made up of young men and some women who, for the most part, don't have experience in negotiations or really even business at a whole. So asking for equity is like a veiled thing they didn't even know they should have been asking for or working towards. And then by the time in esports you do become business savvy and informed, that's usually at the tail end of your career. That's becoming less and less true because there are older people in gaming now that are taking more leadership roles or are paving the way for other people. So you will start to see more of that. But with EG, they knew that they didn't have to offer that. And they paid off because they were able to sell it for millions and millions of dollars. And instead of dividing that up between 30 people, they divided it up between 5 or whatever it was. Do you plan on doing commentating on esports events for games other than StarCraft? I guess I can say right now I do plan on that because I'm going to be doing Dawn of War 3. But this kind of goes back to the other thing where I was saying I'm only going to do what I love. I don't plan on... Like, I don't look at a game and go, I'm going to move into that game. I'm not hating on people that do. It's just... It's to each their own. For me personally, I gravitate towards what I love. So I've been playing some CSGO. But I don't necessarily want to commentate it because they have a super mega established community, and maybe I wouldn't even be good at it. I play a lot of XCOM. There is no competitive scene for that. It's just really fun to play. And then I play a lot of StarCraft because that's what I've been doing my entire life, and I love it. So just to give you some flavor on how I answer that. I want to ask a question, but he feels like I answered everything. Have you thought about joining another esports organization? Yeah, so like I was saying, it would have to be like a mega... I would join a Team Liquid or something like that, or one of these teams that is, Echo Fox and these teams that are like mega established and doing really well. I think that'd be really fun and exciting to some capacity, but it'd have to be the right situation, right deal. All right. It's clear that Starcraft is one of the most important things to you in your life. Did you have any feeling of loss when it started becoming less of a prevalent thing in your life? Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. It wasn't necessarily a sense of loss, but it was a sense of like identity crisis. Being frustrated and scared almost of the idea of like this thing that I've done forever was no longer enjoyable. Thank God I figured out that it wasn't enjoyable. It's that playing it at the same capacity, but for no reason other than to stream it, was not enjoyable for me. But reducing my workload of doing that and still playing StarCraft, but being excited about other games and showing that off was a great combo that brought me that joy. Getting towards the end here. What are your overall opinions on the internet in general? He says you can take that however you want. Net neutrality. It's pretty cool, I guess. Life is better, but I mean, it's just, for me, it's kind of boring because it's just whenever someone asks me a question about something that's just like an eventuality or just will exist no matter what, I'm always just like, I don't know. It is what it is, man. One of the things that gets me through life is I'm, for one reason or another, very good at kind of like compartmentalizing or just accepting truth, basically. So if there's just a chance that something could happen here, I come to grips with that chance pretty quick, and then I'm okay with it. If there's something that it just is going to happen, I just accept that as my atmosphere, and I move on. So I don't like dwell on what could be, or things don't bother me very much, I guess. I've always known of you being a StarCraft viewer, but I didn't really delve into you as a personality or source of entertainment until roleplay. I personally felt like I've witnessed a huge amount of personal growth, especially after the launch of Solemn, throughout these sessions where you were a part of a team or group-based game as based to a single-player game. How much do you feel that your involvement in roleplay or just tabletop games in general has contributed towards your current self and taste in what direction you'd like to go in life? Yeah, so I kind of touched on this earlier. It's a great question. I feel like role playing and tabletop stuff has helped me really come to grips with like being more aware of others and their enjoyment in activities, experimenting with what I find fun as opposed to just sticking with what I know. And it's helped me mold my leadership style. My most recent character, Careless Firm, is a pretty good embodiment of that, where he is the leader of a group, but rather than be like the alpha male, do this or else kind of leader, it's more of a like, I bind us, but it's more of a celebration of everyone else's strengths. And then of course my own flavor is that my character's got to be fucking awesome as well, and Careless Firm is fucking awesome. So, but that's an evolution, right? As opposed to like it being the Jeff character show, it's more of a those characters at the helm is mine. But in that order, I feel. And that's at least what I'm trying to do, and I think that's way more enjoyable for everyone, including myself, by the way. So, yeah. Another question about Alex. What is he doing now? Same kind of thing. Check him out, because I don't really know. Did you or any of your other players on EG ever consider or ask for equity? Wow, another equity question. So no, nobody did. I think Idra actually did at one point, but wasn't given it. Maybe Huck as well. They were always pretty damn savvy business-wise. Would you take recommendations for strategy games like Supreme Commander and Minute War? No, not really, just because those are older games that I've been exposed to, and they're just not my style. But would I take recommendations? Yeah, I mean, feel free. It's not like I'm like, no recommendations. Yes, of course. But, I just reserve the right to not do them. All right. I think we're almost done. Someone wants to ask the future viability of StarCraft as an observer sport to compete in tournaments. I just think it's more of what it is right now, just as it kind of continues to trickle down. There'll be more RTS. Will it be Warcraft 4 or Starcraft 3? I don't know. There'll be a resurgence with that, but it won't be what it was in 2010 because we're now sharing the space with other gigantic games. But Could it be another top esport? Could it be a Starcraft? Could it be an RTS? Yeah. But when I say top, I think we can comfortably say, top 5. There'll never be an RTS that replaces these other games, as far as I can tell. This is just funny. So someone said, when you become a turd burglar and named yourself EG in Control, you've sold your life with off shittery. YouTube. Never stop. You talk a little bit about salary and living conditions as a pro gamer caster, but even with rough number you give is hard for me as a European to put that into perspective. So the question is, what is the actual standard of living in esports life? Well, I think there's a standard of living, and then there's the standard of living I had. I was in an organization that paid very well and took extremely good care of us. And when I say took good care of us, I mean they flew us, housed us, gave us top-notch peripherals, worked with us to have great streams, and they did a lot of really good things. And they also paid us fairly well, exceptionally well if you consider the market and what other teams were paying their players. So by that standard, my standard of living was extremely high. I think the average standard of living in esports is quite poor. You're talking about a young person that's not being paid what they're worth. They're being constantly duped by their organization or other organizations telling them that they're not worth what they're asking for or what they're at, because that's their business model. And then they are struggling to balance school and play and work, all the while being in the limelight and having to deal with something that young people mostly don't have to deal with unless you're like a Justin Bieber, which I'm not saying to that standard. He has bajillions of fans. I know. I'm just saying he started off very young. So it's actually quite poor. But the hope is, as more player unions come out, or esports continues to age in that kind of older echelon of esports people, then become managers, then become coaches and owners and reps and that kind of stuff, that it normalizes and gets to a better place as more player agencies pop up, and as leadership in general, then that lifestyle will go up a little bit more. So that was the last question. It's been an hour and a half, which I think makes this the longest video we've done yet. I have talked emphatically a very long time, and I'm feeling the weight of it. I was actually a little bit sick here, but like I said, this video is late, so I was feeling the pressure to get it out there to you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed this series of videos. This is going to be 1 through 4. There will be no more in this series. I look forward to your comments. Let me know what you think. I love interacting with you guys that way. Even if I don't respond to it, I absolutely do read it. So if you have comments, criticisms, jokes, compliments, whatever, please do consider leaving them there. I will read it, sometimes respond to it. If you've been liking my stuff and you want more, I stream daily on Twitch at InControl TV on Twitch. And I'll try to put up more YouTube videos. Like I said, we have one coming out soon on Belisarius Call, the paint job we did with him. And then, more content will be coming out. So just a shout out to my sponsors and shout out to you guys. Thank you all for making this possible. And thank you for listening to me ramble for as long as I have rambled. I'll see you guys soon.